So some of my students have gotten frustrated, so I will say what I always say. Welcome to another episode of Crimes Notes. Now that you guys know how to graph the lines in several different situations, now we're going to talk about how to read the data on the lines. And the name of your lab this time is Investigating Intercepts, and this is a very important concept, especially for your state testing. It says in a function, an intercept is the point where the line crosses the axis. This is very, very important. We need to know that there's two different types, okay? There's the y-axis, which is the one that goes up and down. That's our vertical one. And the intercept there is the y-intercept because it crosses the y-axis. And the point is going to be 0, y. So if it crosses the y-axis, it's the y-intercept, and the number is going to be in the y spot on the ordered pair. Then we also have the x-axis, where the graph would cross the x-axis. This is going to be called the x-intercept. And the point will be x, 0, meaning that there will be a number for the x and a 0 for the y. Okay. Then it says the x-intercepts are also known as the zeros of a function. And the reason for this is because the x-intercept is where the value of the function is 0. Meaning that the y value comes out to be a 0. So again, I'll do it in orange. The x-intercepts are also known as zeros. And again, that's something very important for your STAR test. So it says number 2, okay, it says study the graphs of the lines below, and they want us to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So if we look at these graphs, as usual, I need to fold my paper so you can see. They want us to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Well, we did the y in purple, so let's do this. Here's the y-axis. Here's the x-axis. So we want to know, where does our line, so this line right here, first of all, touch the purple. So if you notice, the yellow touches the purple right here. This is where they intersect. And that's on the y-axis at 2. Well, we said if it crosses the y-axis and to be the y-intercept, then the y would be a number. So we have 0 and then 2. And again, we would be 0, 2. So now we do the same thing for the x-intercept. Here's the x-axis. It looks like it touches right here. And that would be at 2, 0. Now, it's unusual that it's the same number, the 2 and the 2. That's not always going to happen. So you need to do this one on your own. Remember, again, this is the x-axis, so we want to know where does that cross, and then list the point. And then this is the y-axis, so we want to know where that touches, and then put a point. Please remember that if you go down or left, it's negative, so make sure you reflect that in your numbers. Okay, let's look at page 2. So what we just did was how to find intercepts when you're looking at a graph. What if they don't give you a graph and they only give you a table? Well, here's that same information again. They said that the y-intercept is going to be 0, y in the table. And our x-intercept, or the 0 of the function, they're going to say that over and over again, is going to be x, 0. So if I was trying to look through this table and I would like to identify the x and the y, I could actually look for these 0 values. Okay, so I'm going to leave number 3 for you to do, but it says use patterns to complete the tables and find the intercepts. So here, I go from -3 to -1. So I jumped up by 2. But if I was trying to get to a 0, which is what I'm trying to find, since I'm trying to find the intercepts, I would want to put my 0 here. Okay? So -1 to 0 is only jumping 1 step. So if I'm trying to find the pattern, from -14 to -10, I went up 4. So when I changed by 2, I went up by 4. So if I'm only going to change by 1, that's half of this number. That means I would need to take half of this number. So I would only need to go up by 2. So -10, let me scoot it up, sorry, -10 plus 2, this would be -8. Now, do I have a 0 in the x column, or a number in the x column or a number in the y column? Well, in this case, I have a number in the y column. So when there's a number in the y column, this is actually going to be our y-intercept. Okay? So looking down at the bottom, whoops, I guess I'll go back and do this part, but it says complete the pattern to find where y equals 0. Well, that's what we just did. Okay, so we completed the pattern. Then it says circle, we did where x equals 0. Here it is, we did part E. So then circle the y-intercept. So that's what we just found. And again, this is the part that we did in purple. And now it says write the coordinates. Well, we already know what that is because we just found it. It's 0, -8. So let's go back and do the x-intercept part. Okay, so we want to complete this pattern to see where the x is 0. So again, we're trying to follow the pattern. So 1 to 3, we added 2. But then this says 3 blank 5. Well, the only option to put here is 4. Because the only whole number between 3 and 5 is 4. So now we did it again. This is just a +1, so it's half of this number. So we want to figure out what the difference was here and then complete the pattern. So -6 to -2 is again that +4. So then to do half of that, we would do +2. So then -2 plus 2 makes this 0. Well, that's exactly what we were looking for, was where is the y value 0. So now we're supposed to circle the x-intercept, and again, I'm just going to make it orange so that all the time our x-intercept is orange, and then I will go ahead and circle it. And then it says, what are the coordinates? I'm sorry, y'all can't even see all that I'm doing. Let me move this down and give you a chance to kind of look at it. So then the coordinates of that x-intercept that we just found were 4, 0. Good. So we did part B. We completed the pattern. We found the x-intercept and we wrote the coordinates. Then we completed the pattern to find where x was 0. We found the y-intercept and we wrote the coordinates. So the last thing that this one actually asks us to do is to determine the slope. And there are multiple ways to do that. We have a table, so if you would like to enter it into lists and spreadsheets, you can. It's almost just as easy to pick 2 points. So let's say I pick these bottom 2 that we found right here, and I could find the slope. So if I set it up, remember our formula is y minus y over x minus x. And again, if you want to put this in lists and spreadsheets, you can. So our y values would be 2 minus 0. and our x values would be 5 minus 4. So that gives me 2 over 1, which is 2. So that means every time that the x value goes up 1, the y value goes up 2, which is how we figured this out as well. When we went up 1 in the x, we went up 2 in the y. So that's how our slope kind of matches up with our table. Okay. So again, number 3 is easier, this left-hand column, so I want you guys to go back and do that part. All right, so we've talked about how to find an intercept on a graph. We've talked about how to find the intercept on a table. Now it says, how do we find an intercept when they give an equation? So we know that one form of linear equations is slope-intercept. And again, it's because they give it to you in slope-intercept form, meaning that they give you your m and your b. And that would be this one, y equals mx plus b, or f of x equals mx plus b. And we just said that the m always represents the slope of the line. And again, we've said that it's always next to x. And the b represents the y-intercept of the graph. Meaning that it's always that point that's on the y-axis. So this is what we talked about in 4.8. It says use algebraic manipulation to transform the following equation into slope-intercept form, and then determine the y-intercept for the graph. Okay? So we've already done this. This is what we did in 4.8. So you would draw the line. Remember, we're trying to get y by itself. So we would need to move x. So we would say minus 6x. And then remember, I don't put it directly under the 9 because this does not have an x and this does. So these would cancel. Do not lose that negative. So we have negative 3y equals 9 minus 6x. Then we would divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. And I get y equals negative 3 plus 2x. So again, the first thing that I did was subtract the x term. And then I divided everything by the coefficient, or the number, in front of y. And then all we did was simplify. So now I'm supposed to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Well, remember, my m is whatever is in front of x. So here's x, so my m is 2. And then my b, or my y-intercept, is negative 3. But what would that be as an ordered pair? Well, remember, our y-intercept is 0 for x and a number for y. So this is the new part, being able to actually identify it as an ordered pair. So number 5, you should be able to do on your own. This is manipulating those equations and finding the slope and the y-intercept. Okay. Then down at the bottom, I'll give you guys a few little hints here, but we've talked about this in your slope lab and you've seen it. These are our special cases. Again, we know every time we see that special cases, that means these are horizontal or vertical lines. And for many of you, I talked about whether or not they have a y-intercept or not and what the slope is. So remember, if it only has a y, that means it crosses only the y-axis. So you need to decide if that's horizontal or vertical. Same thing, if it only has an X, that means it only crosses the X-axis, so you need to try to remember if that's horizontal or vertical as well. So if you have any trouble with that, let me know, and I am here to assist you.